Lord my God, He awakens me morning by morning. He awakens my ear to listen as a disciple. May the Lord God awaken Memphis to listen as disciples.
Well, since I've probably known Gabor and Edina the longest in this room, I get the privilege of introducing them to you. We have a special treat this morning. Gabor and Edina came into my life about 25 years ago. You just never know when you join a prayer team for a missionary how much you personally are going to receive from praying for that missionary and family as you get involved with them over the years. It's been my privilege to pray for and be on the support team for Gabor and Edina and their 3 children. Gabor grew up behind the Iron Curtain. His grandfather was a fairly wealthy man before the communists took over and lost everything. So Gabor grew up hearing stories of what happened to the country when communists took over. He lived under that oppression, and God had different plans for this young man who, I don't have time for the whole story because he'll tell it much better than I did, but God touched his heart and changed his life and put him with a partner, and together they've been a very powerful couple for the Lord. He was trained secretly by a group called Campus Crusade for Christ. They could not even, they had to be in the country covertly, and was actually baptized at night because it was illegal. And God has changed his life and molded his life and made him into a really model for all of us. He's got a heart for evangelism. He has a heart for the lost. He's always had a heart for the lost. He and Lisa stayed up the first night we met him. I don't know, they ever went to bed talking about lost people and how to reach them. Gabor went on to become the director of Cru, or Campus Crusade, for Hungary. While there, he and Dave Robinson wrote a book, Youth on the Threshold of Life. God used it in the country of Hungary, and it became adopted curriculum in all the high school. And it was about absolute truth. It was about character, and they showed the Jesus film. A communist country required all the students to watch a Jesus film. Gabor laughs about the fact the smartest people in China called, and he had 300 or 400 Chinese PhDs wanting to know how to implement youth on the threshold of life because the communists were having so much trouble with the character of their students. Sound familiar, America? Maybe we need, and he's working on, he just finished it in English, but we need a revival within our educational system. Gabor has lived that. More than that, he's been my friend. I've watched him at great personal cost. A lot of people want to come to America. Gabor didn't want to come. He loves his country, and he wanted to be there. He had a ministry that was very successful, but at great personal cost. Cru asked Gabor to move to America, to begin to help Americans see the church movement. The church is expanding, and the church movement places are where the baptism rates are keeping up with the birth rate. That hadn't happened in America since World War II. Movements are occurring all over the world, and Gabor is the executive vice president or some director of global church movements for Cru, which is a big title. But what his heart is he goes around to different churches and different groups, training them how to get people to actually believe that Jesus said, go, not come. Go. And Gabor's done that. He's one of the 5 people on if you have 5 fingers, he's one of the 5 people in my life that if I'm in trouble, I call. He is made a huge impact on my wife and I. Follows Jesus at great cost, and we're in for a real treat. So, brother, come on up here. I've said enough.
I love you. Well, we feel the same about you guys, truly. Oh, gosh. It's going to be hard to speak. So, my wife and I moved to the U.S. 6.5 years ago. And the thing I want to talk about is perseverance. And I was thinking a lot, when we moved here, we were not prepared. Great to see you, Ronnie. We were not prepared to face the brutal reality of this nation. And, we immediately realized that what Nehemiah faced with, the walls are broken and the gates are burning. And that one sentence has changed his life. For 141 years, the walls of Jerusalem was broken and the gates were burning. And nobody cared about that. But there was this one man who heard one sentence and it's completely changed his life. So, what will make us weep and pray and pound the table that we have to change? We see the seismic changes in this country. I never thought we're still outsiders. Okay, it's just like, what do we know about America after 6 years? So probably nothing, and except we see the same signs that we've seen in our country under communism. I mean, every day, almost every day, my wife and I look at each other. Oh, that's that position used to be the comrade so-and-so in that company. Now they call it diversity and inclusion. Now they call it LGBTQ. Now they call it all kinds of things the same principles we see. And every single thing in this country is under attack. And in the West, I would say, it's true of the West. Our religious identity is under attack, our national identity is under attack, our sexual norms are under attack, our gender identity is under attack, our family definition is under attack, our value of life and when it begins is under attack, our basic institutions are under attack, our history is under attack, our past, and without a proper knowledge of the past, you're not going to have a prosperous future. Our education system is under attack. Our culture, our physical safety, they're wasteland. There are cities that are wastelands in America. Reason and rationality is under attack. Our unity is under attack. Every year, 2.5 million people leave the church. The U.S. now the 5th largest nation with the most non-Christians residing within its border. 168 million people says that they do not believe in God. They do not believe in Jesus. That's more than the whole population of Russia. So how did we get to this point where with all the resources, 90% of Christian literature probably is in English. The best teachers, the best seminaries. Yet, while we were doing church, while we were doing, our podcasts and blog and all that, we became the 5th largest unreached people group, or none. In the past decades, and it goes down to personal tragic stories. It's not just numbers. Think about the teenagers who are struggling with identity crisis. In the past 7 years, gender dysphoria grew 666 times in this nation. Teenage suicide grew in 10 years 151%. Teenage depression 189%. Okay, the surgeries that performed, 70% of the gender surgeries performed on teenagers in this country. And that grew 4,400%. 20% of teenagers now in the US identify as LGBTQ. every fifth kid. Rod Dreher wrote an excellent book. I highly recommend that, and we're going to turn to the passage that we're going to read, called The Benedict Option. And he writes, he starts the book with this staggering statement: the spiritual crisis overtaking the West is the most serious since the fall of the Roman Empire. The light of Christianity is flickering out all over the West. The breakdown of the natural family, the loss of traditional moral values, and the fragmenting of communities. We were troubled by these developments, but believed they were reversible. It did not reflect anything fundamentally wrong with our approach to faith. The sense one had was, there is nothing here that cannot be fixed by continuing to do what Christians have been doing for decades. If the demographic trends continue, our churches will soon be empty. So while we were doing the church, this happened. And, America still has access to the gospel, but we reject the access. So I hope God is not going to say, woe to you, America. And when the walls are burning, it's not enough just to rearrange the furnitures. And I think in a lot of times that's what we do. We try to fix little things in our churches, to rearrange things. And, 70% of the churches are declining in the U.S. 22, it's Exponential came up with this research recently. I think it's 6% are growing through transfer growth, which means that they don't do evangelism. They don't win lost people. It's coming from other churches. So we distribute the same pie, which pie is getting smaller and smaller. So difficult times are coming. I think we need to embrace that reality. It's going to be different, and it's going to be hard. So let's read Joshua 14, verse 6 through 12. And verse 14. And may I ask a native English speaker to read that passage, because I don't want to ruin your beautiful language with my pronunciation. Okay, so if someone would please read Joshua 14, verse 6 through 12, and verse 14.
6 through 12.
And 14. Do you want to come up here so in the live stream they would hear it as well?
All right. Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, in Kadesh Barnea concerning you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt. Yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, 'Surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, just as he said, these 45 years since the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel walked in the wilderness. And now, behold, I am this day 85 years old. I am still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming. So now give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim were there, with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out, just as the Lord said.' Therefore Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite to this day, because he wholly followed the Lord, the God of Israel."
Amen. Father, open your word to us. So, we're living in an age where endurance is not something the culture really embraces. I mean, we want to get things when we want to get things, how we want to get things at that time. So, and we live in a prosperity culture, and unfortunately, Christianity, we just embrace that prosperity culture as well. Now, we might not view prosperity culture as the prosperity gospel, but there are different ways embracing prosperity culture. For instance, in our Christian circles, we expect to be known and recognized. We expect to be thanked and appreciated. We expect to be positioned and to be honored, or we expect to see certain results of our investment. Now, the story of Caleb is a fascinating story of vitality and passion and faith. I mean, 85 years old. I don't know if I'm going to be alive at 85, but looking for another battle, a new battlefield. That's just fascinating. So, how did he persevere for so long, looking for a new battlefield at 85? Well, there are a couple of things we knew and it's revealed to us. One is that he was future and promise focused. He looked at the future and the promise of God, which also meant, first, it meant that he was not held back by his past. So Caleb was a Kenizzite. Now, we don't know much about the Kenizzites, okay? And scholars are still debating their origin. But what I read and what, the different commentaries says that, he was a descendant of Kenaz, who was the grandson of Esau. And it means that, so he was not, from Israel. And later they say that they somehow integrated into the tribe of Judah. So it's just really interesting to see that he had a different past. I mean, it's noted in the Bible he's a Kenizzite. And he's not from among us. Yet he's better than most of us. Because he was one of the few fighter who actually cast out, all the nations. Because later we read, I think which verse, hold on, let me find that. Joshua 18:3, Joshua warned people that how long will you put off going in to take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Caleb already went in. And then in Judges, we read that there's so many tribes did not cast out those people, but Caleb fully cast out all those people. So he was not held back by his past. Let me tell you something about the past, because I see a lot of people get stuck in their past. Resentment and bitterness. That's what holds them back. Someone hurt them in the ministry, or in their life, they had, injustice happen to them. They had a difficult childhood. But there's nothing we can change about the past. I cannot change the past of my country. I cannot change the fact that the communists took everything from our family. I cannot change the fact that my father was abusive. None of that I can go back and change. And so many people are stuck in that. Remember the story of Cain and Abel? Cain was bittered because God treated his brother better. Why are you doing this? I think if he could, he would want to kill God, but he couldn't. So he killed his own brother because he was upset with how God unequally treated them. It was just not fair that his sacrifice is welcomed and mine is not. And then God says something interesting to Cain. Remember the story, right? Sin is crouching at the door. Conquer it. Resentment is murderous. Bitterness is murderous. It's going to murder your own future. So if you let the past, resentment, and bitterness conquer you, you will kill your own future. So if you want to endure what's coming, just leave behind the past and put it in the hands of the one who will judge justly. I remember that the story of my wife's grandfather, who was a Baptist pastor and under communism, because he shared his faith and he gave, Russian Bibles to Russian soldiers. He was kicked out. The church kicked him out. It was forced. The church was forced to kick him out to be a pastor, and he had to work as an unskilled worker. And the whole family was just upset, and we need to do something about that, and we need to. And he was just standing, and in a very meek voice, just said, "Let entrust this to him who judges justly." We can't change the past. Let God deal with that. So if we want to climb a hill, we cannot look down, and because we're gonna fall down. And Caleb was climbing a hill. He wanted to take the hill country. The other thing we see is that, he looked ahead and embraced the reality that this whole life is going to be a war. At 85, he was not thinking about retirement. It's just like, I fought all my life. And at 85, he chose the most difficult battlefield. Just think about, in my country, we have a lot of castles. And all the castles are built on the top of a hill. And there's a good reason for that. It's a simple military reason. It's easy to protect, and it's really easy to attack. It's difficult to attack uphill. And that's when he says, okay, now I'm 85, and I'm ready to take the hill country. All these little battles, okay, that just prepared me for this main thing, the hill country. So now what can you expect in a battle? You, sir, you're in Vietnam, right? What can you expect in a battle? Wounded, death, hurt, pain, losses, disappointment, betrayal, all those things. Yet we think we are entering into the Christian life just running through it happy like someone who doesn't know anything, just like everybody's going to be fair, life is going to be nice, Jesus is going to give me everything I want. So many people we saw turning away from Jesus because life was hard, because this is a battlefield. And Jesus warned us in John 16:33. He says, "Hey, you will have tribulation." John 15:18, the world will hate you. John 15:20, they will persecute you. John 16:2, they will put you out of the synagogues. And they will kill you. They will kill you. So the environment we need to walk in, this calling, is hating us, seeking us to destroy us, seeking us to persecute us, to trouble us, to kill us. Yet we think we can just walk in and it's going to be, everybody should embrace us. And I think what surprised America, that the culture was so friendly for so long, and we're stuck by the reality that the culture started to reject us and hate us. But that's the norm. How did the first Christians survive centuries while Rome was burning. They were facing the arena every day, the possibility of death, and they lived underground and raised generations after generations and grew. Recently, I had a discussion with the campus director in our organization, or someone who's working with campus, and said, the LGBTQ issue on campus and how difficult it is to navigate that. And I said, well, maybe we just need to stand up for the truth. Well, but then we're going to lose our status in campus, and we're not going to be able to, we will have to be underground. Well, I said, that's great. We were underground for years, and it was really good for us. Maybe the campus ministries needs to be underground on campus. You still can have conversations with people. Now, you might not be able to have functions on campus, but you can share the gospel, and maybe students will start listening once we stand up for the truth. It's maybe we don't need to have 501c3s. Maybe that time would be really good for us, because the way we can imagine church is this. Well, we need to have a legal entity. We need to have church is ecclesia. It's the gathering of believers. So, following the commands of Jesus. So, and Paul affirms the reality that Jesus said, the world will hate you. And one more thing, that I see, that we bend over just to please the culture. How can we win the culture? We lost the culture. It's gone. Okay? The media controls the culture, the education system, the social media, entertainment, and culture controls politics. Because politicians will follow the culture because of votes. So, if we lost the culture, how do we change? We change people. We're called to change people. The only thing will change people is the gospel. It's so long we thought, well, if we're going to change the system, this is going to change people. That's the opposite is true. Changed people will create changed systems, because sick people create sick systems, and healed people are creating healed systems. So that's why we're called to heal. While Rome was burning, Christians were not busy fixing Rome. They were busy sharing the gospel. And so many times I feel that we want to fix America, and Christ did not die for America. Jesus died for Americans, and died for Hungarians and Indians and Africans. He died for people. And when we're going to look back from heaven, when America is going to be gone, long gone, there's going to be one kingdom, the kingdom of God, where there are going to be all nations from all tribe and all language. So, Paul affirms the environment that Jesus said, but this is going to be our environment. And Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4:11, he says, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be manifested in our bodies. For we who live are always being given over to death. So that should be the expectation. And Jesus made it clear to follow him, to endure. You need to die and deny. Those are the two things. Die, pick up your cross, and deny yourself. Now that's not a very, very popular message, because we want to promote happiness, and everything is going to be fixed for you. And Jesus says, no, die to be treated fairly, die to be known and respected, die to be thanked and appreciated, die to your voice to be heard, die to your idea to be the one that needs to be embraced. Die to well-deserved position, die to your rights, die to your desire just to do what you want to do, and embrace what the church needs to do. Die to your pride, die to your disappointment. Why? Because the only innocent who had the rights for everything gave up his rights and died. So let me conclude with a personal story. We all have our painful deaths, things that we had to die. And there are people here who died to more things than we had to die. But I just want to share this story, it's just to bring you into a journey that was very, very personal for us. And, we all could talk about friends who betrayed us. I remember a friend that I trusted for 10 years. I gave him leadership opportunities, and he betrayed me terribly and lied. And it was a terrible story. Or another person that our whole family invested 9 years into, and then accused me of complete lies, and which proved to be lies. But I want to tell you a story that marked us recently and continues to mark us daily. 9 years ago, after a 2 years long God-seeking process, praying, fasting, seeking for advice and counsel, we had a very deliberate process. We felt, God is calling us to the U.S. It was just, we never wanted to do that. We had a phenomenal ministry in Hungary. And we shared the whole process. It's a really detailed process. Advice from outside of our organization, career coaching, seeking the Word of God. We spent 9 days just praying and fasting, seeking the Lord, and my wife and I. And there was this whole process, and with this very unusual outcome that we never thought and never wanted. And we shared that with first our leadership team, and then that we led in Hungary, then with our leaders, then with friends and supporters and pastors in Hungary and all. And regardless of how open and detailed we were about the process, and how, regardless how we have proven ourselves for almost 30 years in the ministry, faithful and successful, incredible amount of people turned against us. There were people, my leadership told me that we're wasting our life. That's a waste, a total waste to go to America. And I said, well, that's what Mary did when poured out the oil on Jesus' feet. If that's all what I can do, waste my life, I'll waste my life. There were people who recommended that we should leave the ministry. There were people, there were people who called me, and it was incredible things they told me, which I'm not gonna repeat. But I remember it was a very, very painful process, because people that we ministered together with, I thought they're my friends, and they are my co-workers, and pretty much most of them turned against us. And we faced an incredible financial crisis. We lost a lot of our support. And I was thinking, what am I thinking at age 50 to go to America from being known to being unknown, from being effective to not knowing what am I going to do, to become stranger and alien in a foreign nation. I remember very difficult conversations with staff that I respected. We faced a family crisis. We had to we had to give up our Hungarian retirement because the Hungarian government said that, if you stop paying into it, you're not going to be eligible for it. So that made me think, maybe we should not go to America. After losing all that financial security plus our retirement, why am I taking my family through this? And then we faced a family crisis, my mother's declining health. She moved into a nursing home. Some of you know that she passed away. I couldn't say goodbye to her I did not see her for almost a year before she died. My wife's aging parent. My sister told my mother that she will never forgive me, that I moved away. Our son became deeply depressed. Our youngest son hardly spoke English, and we put him in an American high school, hijacking his education because the American system is not compatible with the Hungarian system. Are they going to have a future? Our daughter moved to England to start medical school there. Our kids moved back to Hungary because they said we can't imagine having family here. You can't raise children in this country. So there was a lot of things. We had to die to our successful ministry past, to our friends, to our family, to our financial security, to our culture, to being known, to be with our friends and family, knowing that we will never have moments and opportunities with what other Hungarian families have. We had to die to be understood for our decision. We just did not understand why we were attacked for things that others are celebrated for. When others are going for foreign mission field, we respect them. And we were hated for it. And, it just... someone told us that America doesn't need you. And I said, we don't go to America because America needs us. We go to America because God called us. We're not following. There are a lot of needs. God just put this on our heart for some unknown reasons. So we moved into a completely unknown legal, financial, medical, educational system. We had to learn the culture, the rules of the land, the rules of our own organization. It's a whole book worth of stuff, what it meant to arrive as legal immigrants, missionaries, with all the legal stuff, what it costs legally, and then going through learning all, and start leading a brand new ministry within our organization, fighting sometimes uphill battles, starting with a handful of staff, and the Lord blessed it now. We have 113 staff, but it was just really hard times. And when we moved, we knew that we would never have a real home. This country will not be our home. We're foreigners forever. And we knew that Hungary will not be our home anymore as well, because when we move back, people will be moved away. Their life moves on. And in our culture, it's very noticeable that once you leave, you will be viewed as an outsider forever. So we had to learn to carry our roots in our shoes, and to die to a lot of things. We all do, but in the darkest moments, when you have dark times with God, I'm sure you all experience that you have a hard time to talk to God. It's just like, I remember telling God that, God, I don't know if I can forgive you, which is an incredible heresy, even just to mention and have that thought. But I had thought like that. God, I don't know if I can forgive you. Why do you treat me like that? And I read the story of Job. We all know that. And it's fascinating that God keeps talking to him until he talks to him. Until Job talks to God, God keeps talking to him. And that's what he wants. And even in our darkest moments, to endure, just talk to me. Just like King David talked to him. God, they're murderers. What are you doing with my life? And in dark moments, one of the things I do, I don't know, there's this pessimistic thing in me, that one way I take revenge on dark moments is that I start writing. I write poems, and it's kind of a childish thing, but it just helps me to emote before the Lord. And I write, and I'm going to finish with this poem that I wrote at that time, which expresses, that dark moment, and then how God helps us through those dark moments. And the title of the poem called Funeral. Murdered, said the chaplain, died a violent death, as he died to many things he could become or he could have. Each decisions made by faith filled the coffin day by day, killed the fame, the respect, and the name, murdered the fear, the self-pity, and the blame, slaughtered positions, influence, and success, buried relationships, passions, and wealth. Murdered, said the chaplain, slowly died as each day he killed something he liked. That lonely job of killing made him think if he is willing to continue on the path with the cross on his back. But looking up to Calvary, watching the lonely face of the suffering, gave him strength to bend himself to the cross he gladly grabbed. Murdered, said the chaplain, it was worth it, because the one on that cross deserves it. Throw everything in the coffin, fame, name, influence, home, country, success, friendships, relationships, and wealth. Close the coffin, put dirt on it, trust the one who can resurrect to bring life to the dead. It's a funeral, finished the chaplain. The time to celebrate, remember, and farewell. And suddenly the fiery pain of grief prevailed as I see on the coffin written my name. So if we want to accomplish to rebuild the wall of this nation, many, many people need to die. We need to die 1,000 deaths, day after day. And then, maybe then, the Lord will have mercy on this nation and will rebuild the walls. Amen.
This is a Valley of the Well production.